Welcome back to T2T Network, everybody. This is a very special episode of New York Giants Corner. We are doing a recap of Super Bowl 58. And for a very special recap, I have to have a very special guest join me, and that is Andrew Steele, my good friend who had me on a show this weekend. And we did like a preview and our thoughts of the upcoming Super Bowl. And now we're going to do a nice recap of the game we just saw. And he is Andrew Steele of the Andrew Steele podcast. Andrew, it's been 48 hours since we saw each other. How's everything going?
It's all good, my friend. Still recovering after what was just a unreal ending to
What
to
did,
um to the Super
I'm
Bowl.
sorry.
No, go on. You go.
I'm sorry. I'm so bad at interrupting. I just wanted to ask, like, we were on Andrew's show the other day when we were recording, and I'm going to put a link to that episode of Andrew's show in the show notes. Had me on Saturday, and he posted it Sunday morning. We gave our thoughts going into the game, and we were both kind of like, we think this is going to be a defensive battle. Even though both of these teams are kind of like the first, especially with the Chiefs, the first thing you think of is offense. We were both kind of like, this is going to be a bit of a defensive battle. And I loved it. I thought that's what we saw, and I loved it. But not everyone gets excited about that. How did you feel about the game? Was it a good game in your opinion?
It's so funny you say that. I remember a few years ago when the Patriots beat the Rams like 9-3, wasn't it?
I think it was
Um,
17-3 actually, but still
okay,
it wasn't like a blowout. It was more like 10-3 most of the game, and then last second touchdown
like a
made it
garbage time,
17-3.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yep.
I was at a friend's apartment in Brooklyn watching it, and it was it was a friend of my friend's who also, so my friend was also British, and
Mhm.
obviously everyone else there was American, and he told them all before. He said, "Look, trust me, you won't believe it. This guy knows more about American sports than you lot put together, and you're from and I was almost and we were talking, and I wasn't showing off, but as we were discussing off camera, in order to be taken seriously, I do put a lot of work into that side of it. But I remember watching that Super Bowl and then reading the paper the next day because I do still read papers, and the game itself was kind of slated, and people say it was boring, and I never got that, and I think it was the same with this Super Bowl.
Mhm.
I never thought it was boring. What it was Steve Wilkes, who was rightly criticized because his defense was just not prepared in their first two playoff games.
Mhm.
I mean, they got they allowed a lot of points against Green Bay. They got absolutely torched by the Detroit Lions for a half,
Yeah.
and they came out and they were ready, and they brought it from the first minute, and they really did um do a job on Mahomes and that offense.
Yeah.
And as we talked about in on my podcast on Saturday, it wasn't like that Chiefs offense was that dynamic this year to start with. And but then on the other side of that, and it was so funny watching it play out, but particularly the first half, the 49ers had so many opportunities to
Yeah.
to to twist the knife because again, one of the big talking points we spent a lot of time on was Brock Purdy, and disagreeing with the fact that he's a game manager, and he showed on Sunday that he's not. I think he proved once and for all that he's not a game
Agreed.
manager. He made some unreal throws, some really big time plays,
Yeah,
and
they
that
didn't
wasn't
lose that game because of Brock Purdy.
no, that wasn't on Brock Purdy at all. And but there was so many times where you're thinking, right, they're gonna put the knife down, the hammer down now, and really twist the knife, and then they go in at half time, and you think, you know, it's a 7 point lead, and the Chiefs are getting the ball back to start the second half like that. That's the worst possible outcome, and then the Chiefs come out, and Mahomes just that one boneheaded play that he's really done a good job of kind of limiting the last 2 seasons. But he has that one boneheaded play for the interception, on their first drive of the second half, and you think, okay, this is going to be the time when the 49ers actually take advantage, and then they go 3 and out, and then you think, and it was at that point I'm like, yeah, they've lost it. They've
every opportunity. I was not really that harsh with the Chiefs when it came to this, but with the 49ers. And no, I agree with you. Like, you cannot blame Brock Purdy for that, the 49ers not winning. Not at all. Not whatsoever. But I didn't feel this way for the Chiefs. But when it came to the 49ers, every missed opportunity, my instant thought was, you're going to regret that. I didn't feel that way with the Chiefs because it's nothing against Purdy, but it's nothing against Brock Purdy, but this is Mahomes you're going against. And there's that, I don't know what you want to call it, aura, feeling, vibe, whatever, but it's the same thing with Tom Brady, with the greats, Michael Jordan basketball, LeBron James, maybe, Tiger Woods in his heyday, you name it, any sport, when you're going against the greats, they make you pay. And that was, man, like that missed extra point. I was just like, oh my God. I mean, what a difference between a 4-point lead and a 3-point lead. And there were other, obviously, I don't know, miscues is the right word, but there were other missed opportunities for the 49ers. I was, where I was just like, every single time I'm like, you're going to regret that. You're going to regret that. You're going to regret that. And I don't think I said that once with the Chiefs, because I'm like, they still, every time that happened to the Chiefs with the miscue, like, say Mahomes INT, I'd be like, well, they have time. But mentally for me, for the 49ers, I'm like, you're going to regret that. But, they had, oh my God. I mean, but I remember, I think it was at the end of the first quarter and maybe a few minutes into the second quarter, and it was only like 3-0. And but leading off the game, like at least the first half, the first 10 minutes of the first quarter, if not the entire first quarter, like the 49ers it felt like they kind of had control, like they were dictating, right? Both sides of the line, offense and defense, right? It felt like that way, right? Like they were kind of dictating things, but yet they only had 3 points to show for it. Or even going into halftime and it's only 10-3. I'm like, man, I mean, it's not like they put up like 400 yards in the first half and they only had 10 points to show for it, but they were dominating on their defense versus the Chiefs offense, and their offense was performing well enough between McCaffrey and Purdy, where I'm like, you needed to have a few more points, like the points you left out there, or the opportunities you left out there, and even just to chew up more clock or whatever. I'm like, I think that's going to bite you in the rear end, and that's how I felt. And I'm like, man, second half, like, I remember even at a halftime there, the commentators are talking about like, and rightfully so, how like Mahomes was like kind of like rattled. The 49ers defense had him, they kept saying like, oh, he's like, he's got to slow it down. Like his internal clock is off. And actually I'm thinking like, I don't think his internal clock was off. His internal clock was off. I felt like he had to get rid of the ball because if he didn't get rid of the ball, he was going to get sacked. I didn't, but that was just my observation. But I was like, you know what? Second half, man, Mahomes has been there. He knows what he's doing. He is at the age of like, whatever he is, like 27 or 28, he's already a legend. And you have an entire team that's been there before. The coaching that's been there before. And as we were talking about with our guy, Spags, this is a guy who makes second half adjustments like very few other defensive coordinators. And he basically did wind up shutting down that 49ers defense for the most part in the second half. So I wasn't surprised that things kind of, flipped, kind of flipped sort of to the 180 in the second half of the game there.
There's so many different tentacles to this game, and we're going to get into the Mahomes of it all because,
and the Travis Kelce steroid rage.
Yeah, you could probably dedicate 5 hours to Mahomes, but I don't think he was rattled. I watched the game back earlier today.
He wasn't rattled.
And you touched on Travis Kelce there. Travis Kelce lost it on the sideline. Wasn't look, he's passionate. We've seen that
I don't
consistently.
read into it,
With
but
with
it was awkward.
I
Andy
I
Reid
think
looked like a player. He looked like a player who knew he was going to get yelled at by his head coach,
I
as opposed to the head coach who's like,
the
yeah,
reason I paused is because I need to be careful how I frame this. But I think as we touched on Saturday, there were a lot more eyeballs on the game yesterday that maybe aren't as football
mm,
trained. And I don't
mhm.
mean that in a derogative way.
No, I know
I
you're
just
right.
mean that there were a lot of eyeballs not really watching the football stuff, and because it was Travis Kelce, it wasn't that bad, and they of course they're all right because it's in the moment and it's Andy Reid's probably dealt with that. I mean he's dealt with bigger assholes than Travis Kelce.
I didn't
Um,
even know Travis Kelce was an a-hole. That he
no,
was an
no,
asshole.
but you know
But
what
that
I
was an
mean.
asshole
Like,
moment. That
yeah,
was an asshole moment.
I'm not saying he's an asshole, but you know what I mean. Like
Yes,
Andy
yeah,
Reid's dealt with bigger personalities than
yeah,
he's had Michael Vick um
yeah,
and I mean the pictures, the still frames of it look worse. But you obviously had that loss of composure. Pacheco completely crapped the bed after he fumbled. Like he just
yeah.
looked it for the longest time. He just wasn't as effective and couldn't get anything going. And to be honest, watching the game back, there wasn't a single moment where you look at Mahomes and think he's rattled. And I think the reason that was, and the Chiefs knew this, is because I think he knew it was going to go down to the wire, and it was like, play conservative football, don't do anything
Yeah.
stupid. Obviously, again, he did have that boneheaded play on the first drive of the second half, but I think his approach was, look, keep it close, and
Yep.
I'm going to get my moment at the end of the game when the 49ers don't know how to react because, I've been here more times, and I'll take the game in my hands and I'll do what I need to do to win us the game. And that's what he did. It was kind of reminiscent of the Super Bowl last year where he had that run on the bum ankle, and this year he had the run on fourth down. And anyone who thought that he was putting the ball in anyone else's hands in that situation is an idiot. He was
Yeah.
always going to take that himself. And then he had, which was the more impressive run shortly after, where he put him in position to get the touchdown. He put him
Mhm.
within scoring range, and I think I've listened to several national talksport shows today,
Mhm.
and it's so funny how many different angles you get bopping from one to the other. And a couple have kind of gone with well, did the Chiefs win the game or did the 49ers lose it? This was all the Chiefs.
That was all the Chiefs. I
It was
agree
all
with
the
you.
Chiefs. It was Mahomes doing what Mahomes does when the game was on the line. It was Andy Reid coming up with an Andy Reid special with the game on the line. It was Steve Spagnuolo cementing his Hall of Fame candidacy as a coordinator. Chris Jones had a monster game and probably had the play of the game with that pressure on Brock Purdy, because if it wasn't for that, Ayuk was wide open for a touchdown. And it's so funny. Obviously, it was obvious when it happened, but watching the game back, we were saying about on Saturday's show about why you never bet against Mahomes.
Mhm.
All second half, I was like, the Chiefs are going to win this because the 49ers have just blown it. And when the Chiefs are driving down, when they get the ball back late in the fourth quarter, I'm like, it's game over. And
Yeah.
it should have been game over because when he went for Kelsey in the end zone, Rashid Rice was wide open down the middle.
It's
And if he would have got it to Rice,
mhm.
he had enough room to, I think, run in the end zone. Even if he would have got stopped, he would have got stopped an inch or two short, and they still had a timeout to burn, so they could have gone for it. And if they didn't get it, they would have still had
Yeah.
time to kick the field goal. And I mean,
The
Rice showed his inexperience, I think, by kind of losing his cool on the touchline after, and I think Mahomes had to kind of grab him and say, "Look, we've still got,
Yeah.
we've still
He's
got,
like Mahomes is like, shut up, dude. You're still in your second year or whatever, third year probably. It's the
um,
second year. But no, but you know what's funny with that Rice play? I know what you're talking about. I actually did not see it, but I heard reference to it. Like I had to pick up my son at the time, and I'm listening to it on a podcast, and I heard the announcer say, "Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is coming down Rashee Rice." Rashee Rice is obviously telling him that, "Hey, you targeted Kelsey, but hey, I was open." And so I didn't actually see the play, but I mean, whatever. Like this wasn't and what you had said. I couldn't pay too much attention to social media today just because of my workload, extremely busy. Um, but there is no way you can walk away from that Super Bowl thinking that the 49ers lost it or they gave it away and the Chiefs didn't win. The Chiefs won that friggin' game. I saw that game. I saw that game. I didn't see overtime. I had to listen to it in the car on my phone. The Chiefs won that game. Mistakes happen. There are plays that aren't made. That's part of the game. You look at the 49ers offense, and it's an explosive offense. Really, the only two players who really did anything on the offense were Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers. You didn't hear too much Debo Samuel. You didn't hear, too much. You hardly heard Brandon Ayuk. Let me bring up I've got the box score over here. You didn't really hear Brandon Ayuk at all. I mean, he had 49 yards, no touchdowns. Obviously, Debo Samuels was
George Kittle was a non-factor.
Oh, yeah, and obviously they made it a point of shutting down George Kittle, and obviously the 49ers did what defensive coordinator Joe Clark said to do, and that is that if you're going to do anything as the 49ers defense, you better focus on shutting down, even if you have to double team the entire game, shutting down Kelsey, because I'm not worried about Rashee Rice. If I'm a DC, I'm not worried about Rashee Rice. I'm not worried about Vandez, Scanling, whatever his name is. If they beat me, they beat me. But I'm focused on two dudes, Mahomes and Kelsey. And when it comes to Pacheco, I'm like, our run defense is good enough and they handled Pacheco fine. But I loved. It's funny because Spagnuolo, when he brought the heat, what was it, 3rd and 5, and they forced Purdy into a rush throw near the end of the game. I was thinking, send the house, because you got nothing to lose, in my opinion, at that point. And you can either they're going to run it or and when you bring the heat, when you do bring a blitz, when you bring a heavy blitz, you're also like kind of crowding the line for the run as well. And so that's one part of it. But also, obviously, you're getting to the quarterback, and they got in Purdy's face, and that was a difference maker. And the Chiefs defense, man, it's like we were talking about on your show Saturday, how I think it's like sneaky how everyone's still focused, and rightfully so, on Mahomes and Kelsey. But they still think of them as an offensive centric team. I don't see them that way right now. I see them as more of obviously it's Mahomes, Kelsey. That's fair. That's the focus of the Chiefs. That is what stirs the drink, especially the quarterback for any team. But you got Mahomes and Kelsey. But other than that, it's really the Chiefs have been developed into a defensive team over the past few years.
This game, that's cut all the ball crap.
So impressive.
This game was always about
McDuffie all over the place.
Yeah, it was always going to be about the Chiefs defense against the 49ers offense, because the 49ers were the better team. They were the more loaded team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then it was going to be about Mahomes doing what Mahomes does when he gets the opportunity. And the Chiefs defense won out. I mean, you talk about that defining play when Clark got to Purdy and stopped what would have been a touchdown. The real remarkable thing about that play, and this speaks to how much of a genius Spagnuolo is that didn't look like a blitz until the last second. They disguised it, right until the last second. But there's going to be a lot of stuff on Kyle Shanahan, because there's been 2 overtimes in Super Bowl history. He's been involved in both and lost both. Both having beat.
I'll take him as my head coach any day.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't pin this on him like I don't pin it on the 49ers. And could he have put the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands in the second half more? Yeah. There was some decisions with field goals. Sure. I mean, I think if you're going to kill Shanahan,
Mhm,
you're going to kill him for the decision to take the ball first in overtime.
mhm.
And I mean,
I
and
can't kill anyone for taking the ball first in
well,
overtime. I
well,
can't.
no, but what you can kill him for is what's come out today.
Mhm.
Have you
What's that?
seen? Have you
No,
seen
I've
what?
been no,
So
go ahead. Explain to me.
so the 49ers, the players, I think Armstead was one, and there was a couple of others. They came out and said they didn't know the new rules for overtime.
Meaning, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not knowing the new rules for overtime, but
So so
because
so you,
or do you mean like, when you well, go ahead, you explain it.
so obviously the new rules for overtime in the playoffs are that basically it's almost a new game. Both team will get a possession, and if both teams score a touchdown on that possession, it will then go back to the third team, and it'll be sudden death.
Okay,
Well,
so well,
the
let me
four,
stop you there for let me stop you for 1 second. So what you're saying is that and that I did not know. So it's and correct me if I'm wrong, let me just regurgitate back to you. So it sounds like it used to be, as of a few years ago that, whoever gets the ball, if you hit a field goal, the other team still gets a chance to get the ball. If you score a touchdown, you still win. But now you're saying even if you score a touchdown, you're the team who receives the kickoff in overtime. You score a touchdown, the other team still gets to get the ball. Is that it?
so if the 49ers would have scored a touchdown rather
Right.
than a field goal,
The Chiefs keep the
The
ball.
Chiefs still
Oh,
would have got
okay.
the
I
ball
didn't know
back,
that either. And I'm a
and
genius.
and they would have and they would have if they would have then gone and got a touchdown, the 49ers would have got the ball back, and if they would have scored all they would have needed would be a field goal because it was sudden death. Now, if the 49ers, because um, I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this rightly, I think Purdy nearly got picked off in that first overtime drive. That would have ended the game on a safety. Um, but this rule was obviously brought into place after the Bills Chiefs playoff game a couple years ago. We
Ah,
just haven't seen
yes.
it because obviously the
Yes.
Super Bowl last year didn't go to overtime. But I get fans not knowing, but as a team playing in the Super Bowl, you
Yeah.
should know.
Yeah.
And the fact that and I think what's made it worse is that the Chiefs, certain players on the Chiefs in the same interview said, "Well, we've been preparing for this situation since training camp,
Yeah.
and for the last 2 weeks, we've actually been running
You know
drills
what?
where we take the ball second." So the fact that you've got veterans, because it was Armstead and someone I can't think it was a veteran. The
Mhm.
fact that you've got 2 veterans on the 49ers saying, "Well, we were never told
Yeah.
about these rule changes," and the first we knew of it was when it was shown up on the scoreboard. That
Wow.
isn't a
You know
good
what?
look on Shanahan's game management. That's
You
what
know
I'd
what?
kill him for.
I didn't know that, and you know what? That makes all the difference. I agree. That makes so much difference. Like, what's the point in receiving the ball if you're automatically going to get the ball, no matter what the opponent does? If they receive the kickoff in overtime, what's the point in taking the ball first? Because maybe they don't even score. Maybe they score a field goal, but no matter what, like if they score a touchdown, at least if they score a touchdown, if your opponent receives the ball first and they score a touchdown, no matter you are getting the ball. And if it's 4 down territory, the entire drive it's 4 downs, no matter what.
Yeah.
That makes all the difference in the world.
But
They should
but
fire Kyle Shanahan, and then the Giants should pick him up as the offensive coordinator. That's all I'm saying.
that'd be the dream for you. But
Absolutely.
in response to what you said, that's why I would kill Shanahan for that, because what have we
Mm,
been saying since
I
Saturday?
agree.
Because it then becomes a chess match because the team that gets the ball second are playing with an extra down.
I
Who
want the ball second.
who who in we did this on Saturday. if you said, right, I'm going to give you one quarterback to pick that you could build a team around and to win a game in the biggest moments, I said Mahomes.
Eli Manning.
You, I love
And
that
then
you are
Mahomes.
saying.
It's a 1A, 1B situation. It's very close.
Yeah, I'm going for Mr. Wilson for the Jets. No joking. You do not want to be given the ball to Mahomes second to have an extra setback because you want to know why, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
We saw it play out because
Yeah.
the whole the drive at the end of the fourth quarter to tie it and take it to overtime, and then the drive to win it in overtime. If you go back, there's a clip on my Twitter that the NFL put out the entire drive from overtime. If you watch that drive and then go back and watch the drive at the end of the fourth quarter to make it a tie game, Mahomes isn't phased at all. And do you know what's really eye-opening too? Go back and watch that drive in overtime, but I don't think they show it in the NFL clip, but watch it on the broadcast. They kept showing the 49ers sideline. They knew. The players knew. They knew.
Hey, man,
they knew. They accepted.
If you're going against Mahomes, Brady, Montana, maybe a handful of others, even a Peyton Manning, it's like and I know what you're referring to. I remember thinking, like, at the end of the game, I remember watching some of the I think it was actually no. So like I said, I didn't actually see overtime because I had to pick my son up at his friend's house on this side of town. So, but I saw leading up to when the Chiefs tied, I think it was the Chiefs tied it up. Yeah, the Chiefs tied it up at the end of regulation. And you could see the look on the 49ers face. Like it was like I think the Chiefs had just gotten the ball on the 40. You'd see the 49ers like their looks on the sideline, and it was exactly how you described it. Like, we know what's going to happen here. There's like a minute and a half left, or more than that. It was too much time. And but when you're going to get against a quarterback like that, but yeah, when the 49ers didn't take control, like in the first half, like, because they were rocking on both sides of the line there, they really were. And when they didn't have the points to show for it, I'm like, you're so going to regret this. It was but it was fun to see. It's funny because I was on social media a little bit today. I was on I usually live on Twitter, or X. I usually live on that platform, and I was very busy with work today, so I couldn't check it out all that much. But what I did see were, like, just some complaints about, like, it wasn't like the most exciting Super Bowl I ever saw. And I'm like, because they were talking about that it wasn't like, the final score wasn't like 42-40 or something like that. Like, dude, that's the type of Super Bowl where you have to worry about every single mistake.
Yeah.
When you've got two defenses, and the 49ers defense, hats off to them too. I realize, in my opinion, really all they have to worry about is Kelce, obviously Mahomes, but in terms of, the weapons is really Kelce. And I knew they weren't going to have a problem with Pacheco, but I like Pacheco, but he wasn't the type of running back that I've seen so far that was going to have to, that was going to, like, pound down a 49ers four-man front that's stacked to the T. Like, I'm like, no, like, maybe if you have your own Christian McCaffrey, you could, like, you could
he was rattled after that fumble too. Like I said,
right, but he got with it too. I mean, to give him credit, like, he got better as the game along, and but it's just a stout defense, so it's nothing. I'm not even criticizing Pacheco.
But you say about Kelce as well. I mean, and I want to touch on the broadcast itself in a minute, but they kept mentioning about how quiet Kelce was. Well, on those final drives, he made the drive to take it to overtime. He had 2 or 3 huge plays, and it was vintage Mahomes, Kelce. But we said Saturday, right? All we wanted was a fun, good game that went right down to the wire. Guess what? We got a game that went into overtime and literally went down to the last play.
They
There was
look.
no
You know
major
why?
officiating decisions.
Mhm.
You know, there was no. I've not heard anything today. There was no controversial officiating decisions.
No,
And
no.
guess
Refs
what
were
else?
cool. They were fine.
Guess what else we didn't have
Too
that we
much,
had last
too
year?
much, too much Taylor Swift.
No, the turf. I mean, all we heard last year was the turf. The turf was
Ah, good
perfect this
point.
year.
Yeah.
So we had nothing because that was something that the Eagles kept clinging to last year. We had nothing, we've had nothing all day
Mhm.
to other than the Taylor Swift stuff to take away from how great the game was. Just on that, by the way, there is obviously a lot. My Instagram feed is full of Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift stuff,
Well,
and they
hey,
were obviously out enjoying themselves last night. Do you know what I love
God
more
bless
than
them.
anything? So they're out smooching and dancing to one of her own songs, which I find hilarious. But even funnier than that, there is Jason Kelsey, who I think started his retirement tour, and
I
he,
saw him at the game. Yeah.
but he, so they're in this club in Vegas. I think they're
Mhm.
like the Mandalay Bay or something, and you've got Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift dancing and smooching. They're like literally surrounded by bodyguards. It's a bit sad to see it because it
Mhm.
kind of just says the sorry state of the world we live in. But at
Yeah.
the back where the DJ booth is, you've literally got Jason Kelsey on his own with his
I,
dungarees on and a
I
wrestler's
didn't see
mask,
that.
just raving on his own. It's hilarious.
Really? Oh man, it would have been great. I thought you were going to say like with Jason Kelsey and Usher, who did who led the halftime show, playing while Travis and Taylor are dancing. That would have been really really cool.
Like,
I hope those two. What they should do, if they're not, and they're probably not doing, but those two should just elope right now. Go to Bora Bora,
yeah.
elope. Go to Bora Bora and elope. Just get it done.
Okay.
That'd be pretty cool.
Let me touch on these two things before because
Yeah.
I kind
No,
of feel
no,
like
go
we
for
need
it.
to do a lot more Mahomes stuff. But
Hmm.
let me get these two things out of the way, and then we'll stick to football. So the halftime show. I know we talked about it Saturday, and I said I was underwhelmed. I I was bored. Like
Don't ask me, man. I'm 52. If it's after 1989, I'm probably going to be bored.
I
Like the music,
I
that is. If they
like
brought out Van Halen, well, if they brought out Van Halen even without Eddie Van Halen, I'd be excited.
well like after our conversation on Saturday, I went on Apple Music and went through Usher's
Mhm.
like essential album, and there's like a lot of bangers, and for someone my age, it's nostalgic. But like he came out with like 3, 4 slow songs, and it's
Yeah,
like, and I
this is
think,
the Super Bowl. You got
and
to
it's,
play inspirational stuff.
I mean, he's got like "Oh My God," which is, you know,
Mhm.
and he left that to last, and then he brought Alicia. Alicia Keys was great, but it was another
Yeah,
ballad, and it was like another slow ballad. And I think by the time he got to the fun stuff, I spent the entire halftime
yeah.
show on my phone. I was so bored.
I agree with
Um,
you. You have to lead off with the fun, kind of like ass kicking stuff. The stuff that's going to amp you up. That's what you got to lead off with.
he screwed the pooch, if I'm being
He
honest.
did.
That's my
Yeah.
opinion. Second one, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on this because this was obviously being discussed a lot. The broadcast booth, Jim Nance and Tony Romo.
You know
I
what? I never.
there
I
there
don't.
were there were moments during the game where he just kind of confuses himself and then gets
Mhm.
himself twisted in a pretzel and says, and there was a couple of times where he just comes up with some random crap, and then it becomes
Yeah.
really awkward because you can hear Jim Nance on air like 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 verbally thinking, "Oh my god, what am I going to say?"
Yeah, right, right. You can hear the wheels turning
Yeah,
in Nance's
yeah.
head, huh? You can hear the gears like recalibrating.
It
You know what? I have to say, Andrew, like I don't. It's funny that you say that because, and I've heard other people criticize whether it's Romo Nance or just any other tandem, and I'm always like, I never. I'm always like, really, and I mean that just in like, I don't notice it because to me, they become background noise, kind of like almost like you don't notice, sort of like notes in a musical performance that where you don't really notice, but if you pay attention, then you'll notice. Like that's how they are to me. Like I don't really pay. I'm just more like I watch the game And I watch the visuals, obviously, and then I'm watching the replays, and I'm thinking about what could they do? What's going to come up next? Like what are they going to do next? Like I'm focused kind of like a head coach. What would I like? What would I do next? What would I like to see if I were an offense or defense? What would I do? So, I just like. I mean, this is now. Listen, we're well past. It's very hard to get like a Madden Summerall, and that's my time, my era. Madden Summerall, announcers or guys, talking with color commentators on the game, and to me, they're just like, and like again, it's not just Romo and Nance. It's for the most part everyone who does games that to me they just become like notes in a long musical performance, and like I almost have to listen to them to even focus to pick them up. So, but you're not the only person.
Well,
I did see criticisms of Romo and Nance, and I saw criticisms of Romo. It's funny. I saw criticisms of Romo earlier this year, and again, I really didn't listen, but I saw on social media, but when he first started his career and on TV, that a lot of people were praising him. So I don't know. To me, they just become like background noise.
he's fallen off a cliff. He's definitely regressed. But you see, for me, when I'm having a big juicy steak, I like to have a
I love
nice
a big juicy steak.
baked potato
Yeah.
with, heaps of cream cheese. Now, do I need?
Oh, you have
Well,
to meet my wife. My wife Gina. We're all steak lovers here in my family, but my wife is all about the baked potato with the cream cheese and what does she get? Like what else does she get there? She needs
like
obviously the butter.
scallions on top.
Oh, scallions. Yeah, she's all about, and I feel bad when we go to a restaurant and we order, and she's got the waiter's got to take like a million different details on her order. And if it's not right, like God bless you, because you're going to hear it. I'll eat anything, but you got to meet my wife, Gina.
No,
She's all about the baked potato
I'd love to.
with the sour cream.
Yeah,
Holy cow!
I'd love to one day, but do I need the baked potato and sour cream or cream cheese? No,
Yes,
but it adds something to my
yes, you do.
meal, and that's why the point I was going to make about Romo, and I did like a final Super Bowl thoughts column on Sunday before the game. If you offered me, right, you can pay $20 to listen to an alternative broadcast with Greg Olsen, I'd pay it 3 times over, because for me, Greg
Yeah,
Olsen has emerged as the guy, and he just brings something extra that I enjoy with my main meal. Like, he just
yeah,
brings, like, really intricate insight, but he kind of, like, envelopes it in a way that's entertaining, and, I mean, the fact that they've kind of chucked him under the bus for Tom Brady next year, when Tom Brady's never done this before, is, I think, a bit of a. I know why they're doing it, because it's Tom Brady, but I
hmm
think Greg Olsen is. I mean, hey,
well,
if Tony Romo continues to embark on this slippery slope, then maybe CBS will give Greg
yeah.
Olsen's agent a call and say, "You fancy coming over and saving this ship before it goes down?"
Olsen will find, and you're probably listen. Tony Romo's a big name too. Obviously, Greg Olsen is as well. But they'll there will be a place for Greg Olsen. There will be a place for him. But Tom Brady, I bet Tom Brady's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, he is a funny guy. Obviously, he's super knowledgeable. He's very well spoken. And listen, this is a Super Bowl recap, but I'm excited. I'm excited about Tom Brady, and I think he's very very smart. And I think he's got a great personality, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to hear him. But Greg Olsen, if he's not getting his proper due right now because it's a crowded field, he will wind up somewhere where he will get on.
Yeah.
There's plenty of avenues this day and age for him to get his
Well,
where he should be.
well, to your Tom Brady point, we saw it with Eli Manning. He really opened up post playing career, and I
Mhm.
mean, we did see it Sunday night. I think for me, the best Super Bowl commercial by far was the Dunkin' Donuts one, which had
That
Tom
was
Brady in
funny.
it, and
That
Tom,
was funny. Oh, from Boston.
yeah. So
That
I
was
think
good.
to your point, Brady, and it's not that I'm worried about it, it's just more the fact that Greg Olson's been doing this for a couple of years now, and I think throwing Brady straight into the top crew,
Yeah.
there's going to be things you need to learn. But um, back to the game, and I just, back to Mahomes, and I've just kind of spent the entire day in awe at just
We
how
are
special he is.
we are in the throes. Do you realize, Andrew, that we're in the like if you were and listen, you're a Jets fan, I'm a Giants fan. I don't have hate for the Patriots. I don't know if you do, but many Jets and
Can't
also other
stand him.
NFC many other NFC East fans hate him as well. Dolphins, Bills, you name it, Jets, they all hate him. The rest of the AFC hates him. I know Colts fans who hate him because he prevented Peyton Manning from winning many Super Bowls. But right now, you're looking at what he's on his third Super Bowl ring. Brady won his third Super Bowl ring in like 2005 or 2006, and he still played for like 12 more years. That's what we're looking at right now. Where you're like, we just basically started the dynasty. Having 2 rings and they're not back to back isn't a dynasty, but now you've got 3. It's a dynasty, and obviously he's only like 27, 28 years old. Like we have a long ways to go. I was looking forward to, as much as I've always loved and respected Tom Brady in that era, and I appreciate excellence. In
Yeah,
baseball, I'm a Mets fan, but I appreciated the Derek Jeter Yankees. Like that was just all I could do was just sit back and appreciate that excellence that I saw. And for me, it was the same thing with Brady and Belichick, those Patriot teams, for like 18 years or whatever it was, 16 years. And that's what we've only really just begun with the Chiefs, with Mahomes. You look at like no one's going to remember Rasheed Rice 10 years from now. You know, uh, quite frankly, I don't think anyone's going to remember Isaiah Pacheco 10 years from now unless you're a Chiefs fan. You know, Vandez Scandling, whatever his name is. Um, these are forgettable names, replaceable. They're replaceable, players, replaceable names, as opposed to Mahomes and Kelsey. You know, like these are the names you're going to remember, and it's really like it's not a loaded offense. It's very much like the Patriots. Like the Patriots, it was Brady, and you look at through the years with Brady and the Patriots, like there were the defensive centric teams besides Brady, besides Tom Brady. They were pretty much a defensive team. Actually, people don't really realize that, but his best passing seasons, he had Randy Moss. They didn't win a Super Bowl with Randy Moss, but he had some other good wide receivers that aren't household names, like not Deion Branch. He was a cornerback, but
Chris Hogan.
Hogan, but obviously Amendola. Who else
Yeah,
was there? Wes Welker, who was a very good player. These are good players. I'm not knocking them,
but you
but
talk
they're
about role players. Chris Hogan was a
the
typical
great
veteran role
quarterbacks
player,
make these role
and
players into like
and
something better than they are.
he had some of his biggest plays and Brady's biggest moments because he was someone that Brady came to trust. And but it's so funny. I think the further you go along in his business, you still have that fan inside you, but you learn to kind of park that fandom a little bit. And like for me, being a Jets fan, you do look at the Patriots, but I think as I'm trying to progress in this industry, you do learn to really appreciate greatness. And I mean, I've got
Yes.
4 or 5 books on the Patriots, and I can't help but admire what they built. And you
Yeah.
talk about the Chiefs and what Mahomes said on the podium. It wasn't bluster. This is just a start because as we touched on Saturday, he's 28 years old. He's got a lot of football ahead of him as long as he stays
Got
healthy.
10 years ahead of him at
And
least.
and look, Brady will remain the best as long as he's got the most Super Bowl rings.
Mhm.
But the thing is, what stood Brady apart was he had that kind of inner desire and that clutch gene. Well, Mahomes has got the clutch gene, that inner desire, and he's got abilities that Brady never had. So you pass all
Yeah.
those 3 things together, which is why Mahomes is the best player in football. And again, and I think what people probably aren't maybe aren't touching on as heavily at the moment is the fact that you're going to have the Patrick Mahomes effect, the same as the Tom Brady effect, in terms of you're going to have veteran stars who haven't won a Super Bowl yet, who are going to take lesser deals to go to Kansas and play with Mahomes to go ring chasing. Like, it
I
really
would.
wouldn't surprise me next year if they pick up one or two bargains in free agency and get, because there's no doubt now they're going to look to really upgrade the offensive, because they probably realize you can't have another year like this and expect to compete. They're going to need to
I
give
was thinking
Mahomes.
that last year. I was thinking that last year when they lost Tyreek Hill. I'm like, listen, I love Mahomes and Kelsey and everything, but it's a crowded AFC, and there's no way they're gonna win a Super Bowl last year, and yet they did it with like Kadarius Toney as their number one wide
Yeah.
receiver.
But like Mahomes, Mahomes is just one, so he's happy. But if you're Brett Veach, the general manager, you want to keep your face of the franchise extra happy. How do you do that?
Yeah,
You go and get him a legit weapon.
yeah.
And if you do that, you're not only keeping Mahomes happy, you're keeping Kelsey happy, because that takes the pressure off him, and you're keeping Reed happy
Absolutely.
because that makes his job slightly easier in terms of play calling.
100%. And you know what? Here are Toss the titles. We're actually in the middle of doing our 10th mock draft for the 2024 NFL draft. And so please check that out. We're releasing it every other week. We're actually going to be releasing it sometime either tomorrow or Wednesday, our newest mock draft. But yeah, it's like I think we've been pretty consistent. The ones running the mock draft here at Toss the Titles have been me, Coach, and Ephraim, otherwise known as Mr. Irrelevant. And that's his Twitter handle, at Mr. Irrelevant. And we've been I think what I've noticed is that the Chiefs, for the most part, have been getting a wide receiver, but I would not be. This is a very deep wide receiver class. And I know we're not here to talk about draft, but I thought I'd do a little plug here anyway for what's coming up, because we are entering draft season.
We are.
We got. Listen, Andrew, we're gonna have you on as regular, fairly regular, and we're gonna start doing draft stuff together, all the fun stuff. Because until April like 27th or whatever it is, man, draft, all draft. But I don't know, like this is a really deep, and every class is very deep in wide receivers now, because they seem to be so like easy to develop. I think it's almost a mistake when NFL teams invest so much in wide receivers now, because it's important, it's key, but they seem to come out of college like almost like NFL ready, at least within a season, within 2 seasons, if you will, that you can make it work. I still want to see them build on their defense. Give Spags more weapons. No, give him a wide receiver. I bet there'll be a wide receiver, or maybe a tight end, a wide receiver at the end of the second round. I'd say I'm thinking go defense or go offensive line for the Chiefs.
I'm just firing up.
What happened? Tell me.
Wide receiver free agents.
Yeah, don't spend money in that nonsense.
But it's a thin market. But do you know what I would like to see?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Evans, best wide receiver available.
Going where?
Kansas.
Well, he could do it, but he has a ring.
But if you think of how good he was with Baker, right? And I
love Mike Evans.
If you're Mike Evans, he's still young enough where he can make a real impact. Maybe take a 2-year deal, leave a little bit of money on the table.
I'm not a greedy person.
Because if he goes to Kansas City for 2 years, say, and puts up monster numbers and wins a ring or two, well, then you're talking about maybe maybe this is a stretch to say Hall of Fame, maybe, because I'd have to look at his numbers overall. But
he is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
But so there's a legacy part of that. Odell Beckham Jr., I'm not really sure. I don't think he'd fit in that. But I think it'll be interesting to see what they do this off season. But whatever they do, they're going to be, you know, and, and I know they made a point of this. You know, Mahomes said, you know, we're never going to be underdogs, and we said it Saturday, never bet
I
against
would
Mahomes
never, ever. I'll take my chances. I'll put my money down and take my chances.
because it was the same 2 years ago when they beat Buffalo in the championship game. He needed 30 seconds to drive down the field.
That was a crazy game. You're talking about
Yeah,
possibly the greatest game of all time, the
yeah.
craziest game of all time. Yeah, that
And the
was
one
insane.
that forced the overtime changes that
Mhm.
obviously benefited the Chiefs this time round is, there can no longer be any discussion of where
Yeah,
they're the underdog or Mahomes won't be able to do this, because they've just proven that no matter the situation, no matter the stakes, as long as you've got no number 15 on your team,
I
you've got a
just want people
chance.
to realize, if they haven't realized it yet, my millions of fans, my millions of New York Giants corner fans, who are back. I want them to realize that we have only just now entered. You're basically like, put you back in time perspective. You basically entered like 2005 New England Patriots era, where you're only at like the beginning, like the first half at best, the first half of this Chiefs Mahomes saga. You've only just entered the beginning of this saga, really. It's like he still has 10 years to go. 2004, 2005 is around the same time frame with Tom Brady, where Tom Brady already had 3 rings on his hand. And we still had most people at the time, they were deriding him. A lot of detractors were deriding him as as a game manager. And 10 years later, here he was winning 3 more Super Bowls, going to like 4 or 5 more Super Bowls, but winning 3 of them. And that's where we are with Mahomes. We've just started this track. Just started this track. It's kind of like almost just being like on like I don't know. Even though he's got 3 rings, I feel like we're almost like on book 1 of like a Lord of the Rings trilogy here. Like we've just
Yeah.
started the track. That's how I feel. Like there's so much more to go. And as a quarterback, like he could easily play until he's 40. Easily. We've just started this track.
If some alien dropped out of the sky now and came to me and said, "I'm coming to you from the future, and I'm telling you that Mahomes either matched Brady's 7 Super Bowls or eclipsed that," it wouldn't surprise me, because, like you
Not
said,
at all.
quarterbacks are playing well into their 40s now.
Mhm.
Let's be honest, the game is quarterback friendly. The QBs are
Too
protected.
friendly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got all the rules on their side. And for someone like Mahomes, who can evade the pocket and make plays, stretch plays out of his legs anyway, and can
Mhm.
move, he's got everything on his side. And when he does get older and lose a little bit of the leg, he's got one hell of an arm on him. So he's gonna be
Doesn't even need his legs.
he's gonna be able to play at a high level when he's late 30s or early 40s anyway.
Yeah.
So I really do think that this is just a start. They're going to be able to attract pretty decent free agents on team friendly deals, because I mean, again, I'm not trying to labor the point, but because we've already mentioned him, if you're Mike Evans
Mhm.
and you're looking at, right, where do I want to go spend the next 2-3 years of my career? Why wouldn't you go to the Chiefs, where you've got a play caller in Andy Reid who is going to open things up for you like never before,
Yeah.
and then you've got the best player in football and Patrick Mahomes, who's going to get you the ball and make you look damn good doing it.
Andrew, I'm actually, I believe me, I am actually with you. If I were Mike Evans, not his agent, but the player, I'd say to my agent, no matter what, get me to Kansas City. I don't care if I'm making $2 million a year. I don't care. Even though I don't care if I'm making $2 million a year and I already have a ring, with the Buccaneers and Brady. I want to play with that guy because we're always going to be a good team. and I'm just going to make them better, is Mike Evans. I would take the pay cut. I would take the pay cut because he's already made. And this is me. I'm like, if I'm Mike Evans, I'm already thinking I've already made a lot of money. I want to win more rings. I just want to enjoy my time for the years that I have left in the NFL. I want to have great time, great memories. I want to leave with Mahomes, who's a really good character, Kelsey, who's a really good character, even though he's very abusive towards the elderly, Andy Reid. I'm joking, but yeah, it seems like a lot of fun. The Chiefs are great. I'll tell you, man, here in the States, like, and I live 20 minutes from MetLife. I've been a lifelong Giants fan. I love the idea of playing for the Giants or the Jets because my father's a big time, long time Jets fan, playing for either team. But I've never been someone who's like, oh, I got to play for New York because it's the biggest city, here in the States.
Yeah.
I actually love the idea of playing somewhere else where, like Kansas City, where like there's really nothing else to compete with, and you don't have that media to deal with. Like that's like key. Like I'd love to be a star in Kansas City or Minnesota, where it's like, where it's like you don't have to worry about like, the media here in New York or even LA is like it's so strong and so ridiculous that everything you do is recorded. But to be like a star in Kansas City, I think is so ideal. It's so ideal.
And I'm gonna go on a little tangent here because you just opened that up for me.
I love it. Go for it.
And this was brought up on New York Sports Talk the other day, and it's such a good point. And like, I almost feel bad saying it because it's one of the reasons I love New York too. But the fact that there's like 9 professional teams across the 4 major
ridiculous.
sports, it's something that I've always loved about New York. But kind of the older I get, it's almost
yes, as you mature,
it's almost a bit
give it a rest
because obviously, look, we're going to see in Kansas City now. They're going to have the parade at some point this week, and all eyes are on Kansas City. If the Giants or the Jets win, half the city's not going to be interested because they're going to be fans of the other team, right? It's the same with the hockey team, same with the Mets, Yankees. Knicks are different because the Nets are never going to have that real estate. But
hey,
baseball, football.
Watch your mouth. I'm a Nets fan. You better be careful, my friend.
But you know what I'm saying. For the baseball, football, and hockey, there's a lot of teams fighting for the same real estate. You don't have that in Chicago, in Kansas, in Pittsburgh.
Oh, 100%.
If the Pittsburgh Steelers go and win the Super Bowl next year, which I don't think they're going to, but that's for argument's sake, say they win the Super Bowl in the next 5 years, that entire city's locked down for the Steelers.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about being a fan of a team that's like a one I'm not going to say one team as like they only have one professional team, but they only have one team per sport. Here in New York, it's so much. I mean, listen, I'm a Giants and Mets fan. Andrew Steele's a Mets fan as well. He's a Jets fan. I'm a Giants fan, but we're both Mets fans. We connect there. I'm an Islanders fan and a Devils fan, actually. I'm in Jersey, so long story there. But Islanders are my 1A, Devils are my 1B. And when it comes to basketball, I'm a Nets fan. Like I said, I'm from Jersey, so and I'm glad that they actually moved to Brooklyn. I thought that was a great move, but yeah, there's the Jets, the Yankees, who rule everything. Understandably so. I respect the hell out of that team, out of that organization. The Knicks, the Rangers, and I love their lore, the lore of those other teams here in New York. I really do, like the Rangers, the Knicks. I really, really do. All of the Yankees. I love their lore. I love their history, and I respect them. I don't root for them, but I respect them. I really do. But man, if I had my choice, like if I'm, a primo prospect coming out of the draft, like I think I'd rather go to like a one horse show, say like in Kansas City, where I remember watching Quarterback, that really good series on Netflix with Mahomes and was it Mahomes, the quarterback from the Vikings and the quarterback from the Falcons, and it was
Oh,
actually really really
Mariota.
cool. Yeah, yeah, and it was really good. And Cousins, and it was very cool. And I respect all three of those guys. You look at Mahomes, and he's like, this is the dude who like is like Tom Brady could rule the world. I mean, it's sports world, like just he could be wherever he wants to be. He could be. We don't get overly inundated with Patrick Mahomes at all.
But
And
you,
that's how I would be. And like he seems like a type of dude who's like, I win my Super Bowls, I say what I want to say. I don't go too crazy. Mahomes is a very respectful person. And when football season's over, you know what? He's with his family going, say, like, Easter, they're going to like, wherever Easter egg hunting, hunting for Easter eggs with their children, like stuff like that. Like it's nothing you don't see Mahomes except maybe like one or two commercials. And that's it. Like there's nothing crazy with Mahomes. That's how I would be. That's the type of person I am.
yeah,
And that's where I'd want to be. Like, I don't want to be like in this metropolis, whether it's New York or LA. If you draft me, great. I'm going to embrace it. And I grew up in this metropolis. Maybe I could handle it, but I'd rather be like
you
Mahomes, where
mentioned Kirk Cousins there. Like obviously he
I
was on the
like
same
Cousins.
of the
I like
same.
Cousins a lot.
I do. I'm the president of the
I
Kirk
love him.
Cousins fan club.
No,
But
I'm the president of the Kirk Cousins fan club.
okay,
How dare you?
I'm the vice president then.
No, I'm the
But,
vice president.
but you see on that documentary, he'll go into Barnes and Noble on a Wednesday, and
Yeah,
their family's embedded
me.
in that.
That's me.
Yeah,
I'm
um,
Barnes and Noble. Me and my son, we go to Barnes and
I
Noble like Wednesday, Thursday nights.
I love that store, but you look at Minnesota. Minnesota gets slapped on, I think, a lot because of the weather, but that's one of the most
It's
underrated
a great
sports cities
town.
in America. They've got
100%.
they love their Vikings, and look what happened this weekend with the Wild. Marc-Andre Fleury played in his 1,000th NHL
Yeah.
game, and
Wow, Flurry. Holy
and
cow.
it and it
Wow.
came and it came
Mhm.
against, of all teams, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the team
Mm.
he'd won all those cups with. The
Yep.
building was packed.
Yep.
Like you don't
You get
necessarily
that
get that.
appreciation. You get that appreciation. It's more intimate. Don't get me wrong. You can have like this, say like a Jeter, Derek Jeter, who I love, and I'm not a Yankees fan, I'm a Mets fan, but I've always loved that guy. He's a very respectful, professional player, a human being, and but you get that to get that awe, or just to have that intimacy with one town, like in Minnesota, like Minneapolis, or a Kansas City, and these are two decent sized cities compared to most of Western civilization. Don't get me wrong, or here in the United States, like they're not megalopolises, they're not huge cities, but they've got a decent size and a good nightlife and everything. They've got culture, they've got civilization going on. To be able to like be kind of like the star of that show, but also be able to go to like, something small like a cabaret show,
Yeah.
or just dinner, and like you can be the star without being like, TMZ all over you. That's
Well,
that's the sweet spot in my opinion.
I hate to keep bringing him up, but he's such a cool dude. But Kirk Cousins again. There
I
was
love Kirk.
last year he literally just rocked up to a Twins game and just sat amongst the fans.
Is that
Didn't
what you would do though?
Yeah,
If you were the quarterback for the Vikings, that's what I would do. Is that what you would
yeah,
do?
yeah,
Me
makes
too.
sense. And and I,
I'd roll up.
and he was asked about it, and I think he almost kind of was like, "Well, why wouldn't I?"
Yeah,
He just said, "Look, we woke up, realized they were playing at 1 o'clock. I've got a
let's
young
go.
son, so it's ideal. So
Yep.
we just turned up and bought tickets, and we just want to
Yeah.
watch baseball. We don't want any
But
of the other."
but that's how you do it. And that's real life, real person, and that's what I love. Like I said, like, growing up in this area, if I were that age, I assume I could handle it if I had the skills like a Mahomes or Brady, being in New York, or Joe Namath, Bill
Yeah,
Sims, Eli Manning. It does, like, it's funny because I do draft mocks all the time here at Tulsa Titles, and I am careful about who I draft in New York and LA. Those two markets exclusively. Chicago and Houston don't really count. Miami, it doesn't. It's not the same. Like the New York and LA, but especially New York. Like, do you have the personality to fit? And as a Jets fan, Andrew, like you have to be like Andrew, you're a savvy fan. This is a real thing. Like it's not a joke. Like it's not. Can you handle the New York market? Some players can't. Kadarius Toney, and it's just the most. And I don't bash on Kadarius Toney. I see a lot of Giants fans annually. They're like, Kadarius Toney, blah blah blah. I don't care. I'm like, dude, leave the dude alone. He's on another team. Who cares? Whatever. He gives back to the Giants fans, equally. Don't get me wrong, he's good at it, but I'm like, leave the dude alone. But it's not easy being in this market. And you're a Jets fan, I'm a Giants fan. And like when I'm drafting for a team here at Tulsa Titles, when we do our mock drafts, I'm wary. I'm like, if I'm drafting for the Giants or the Jets, but especially the Giants, because they're kind of like the Yankees, honestly, like the Yankees of the New York NFL teams, and they are the big brother. I'm like, can you handle being the quarterback? If you're JJ McCarthy, can you handle being the quarterback of the Giants? Yeah, I'm not just talking about succeeding professionally on the field. Can you handle the market, the media? Can you handle that? And it's a real thing.
There's way more prestige with the Giants than there is the Jets. But look at Sonny Gray. He's been a top end starter for every team he's pitched on, apart from the Yankees. He completely crapped the bed in New York, and then he goes to,
not surprising.
Look at what he did with Minnesota last year.
Not surprising.
He was great for him, and then he signed a decent free agency deal this winter because of that, but he just couldn't do it in New York. And I mean, lesser example, but look at McCole Hardman, started the year with the Jets, and ended it with
scores a touchdown. Look at him. Not surprisingly.
Can I go on a mini Jets rant here?
Go for it.
It just you tried to talk me down from the ledge on Saturday, but it's not going to work. I need to actually see, it's like you have, you have a guy who.
Andrew, you keep talking. I'm hitting the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Going on for an hour. Going on. Go ahead.
You have the guy who constantly cheats, and eventually he is who he shows you he is. He's a cheater. Well, until the Jets show me that they can be a well-run franchise, they're always going to be this dysfunctional mess. And McCole Hardman scores the winning touchdown after starting the year on the Jets, and literally while the confetti is still raining down on the field in Vegas, Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, is sending a video out announcing that they've got new uniforms coming. Which, if that's not the most Jets thing, then I don't know what is. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs have just won their third Super Bowl in 5 years, back to back. The winning touchdown is scored by a guy that was on your team at the start of the year, and you're boasting that you got new uniforms coming out. That to me is when I saw it, like it was literally they sent the video out seconds after the presentation, and I'm watching it. I'm thinking, like, if that is not the action of a dumpster fire of a franchise that has nothing to hang their hat on for the last 2-3 decades, I don't know what. Like, a team's literally just won the Super Bowl. The winning touchdown has been scored by a player that was on your team at the start of the season, and then you'll put could that video not be put out on Wednesday? Why is that being put out the night that a team is winning? Woody Johnson's got a history of this. It's, I own the Jets. The Jets should be the biggest story because Woody Johnson has a history of doing things on impulse. The whole reason they got Aaron Rodgers was because he wanted the Jets to be talked about. I mean, that was obvious. He had enough of the Jets being irrelevant. He knew that by going out to get Aaron Rodgers, the Jets would be talked about constantly. Unfortunately, not for a lot of good reasons.
Andrew, you know what? Well, listen, I don't have a problem. I actually disagree with you. And you're a Jets fan. Maybe I'm just being more so listen, I'm a Giants fan. I'm hardest on my team. People talk about like, they're like, oh, other fans of other teams are saying this about the Giants, yada yada yada, Eagles, Cowboys fans, Washington fans. Like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm hardest to my team. Like, that's like, I'll give props to other teams before I give props to my team, and I give them credit when I feel like it's really, really due. And I have a feeling you're the same way. Like, you're very hard on your organization. I sincerely believe that if Aaron Rodgers were healthy this entire season, the Jets would have been in play to win that division. I'm not guaranteeing they would have won it, but because Buffalo's very talented, the Miami is very talented, but I do think the Jets would have been I actually picked them to win the division this year, assuming that Aaron Rodgers was healthy. When you're
but
someone who's like the only organization I follow that actually has multiple wins is the Giants. I'm a Mets fan, Islanders. Well, no, Islanders, but it's been 40 years for the Islanders. Nets, like when you haven't won in a very, very long time, or like a Jets fan, it's I think things get blown out of proportion. I'm just saying stay the course with Aaron Rodgers, and I think everything will be fine.
but
Get him another receiver, get him defensive players, get him offensive line.
My point wasn't about Aaron Rodgers though this time. It was about the organization as a whole.
I know. It's been that way for a long time. But to
the Rodgers point, I think I do kind of agree with you, but then it's like, ifs, buts, coconuts and nuts. Like, if my auntie had balls, she'd be my uncle. Like, you can talk all you want about if Aaron Rodgers was healthy. The fact is he wasn't. And the fact is that the offensive line was the worst offensive line in all of football.
It wasn't worse than the Giants. Did they give up 85 sacks like the Giants? They gave up 85 sacks. I don't care about the PFF rating.
It was one of the worst, if not the worst.
It was 30, 31 to 32.
Outside of Garrett Wilson, they've got no weapons. Because
Breece Hall.
Yeah, I'm talking wide receivers.
Okay, gotcha.
Why? Because Rodgers bought in a load of his old crippled
Lazard
mates.
for $11 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's brought in an offensive coordinator who can't be inventive outside of Rodgers at all. He insisted on keeping Wilson around when it was clear that Wilson should have got cut and not be kept around, and it was a detriment to the team. I mean, you've seen the owner. The owner's come out and absolutely torched Wilson this week, which probably isn't the best thing to do when you're still trying to trade him. But they just
you're not going to get anything from him anyway.
No, so I just think that it's fine to have the argument to say, well, if he was healthy, but I think that was the argument that if you would have pitched that argument to me the week after the Buffalo game, I would have invested in that more. But I think because of the season we saw play out, they've got a multitude of problems they need to fix. Like football, it's not all like, I know we talk about Mahomes winning his team to victory, which is fine. And Rodgers is going to be able to win the team a few games on his own. But I think the fact of the matter is a 40-year-old coming off that serious of an injury, if he's going to have the same porous offensive line, no reliable weapons outside of Breece Hall and
that's
Garrett
Wilson.
The main thing
the main thing I'm doing is I'm sorry, finish. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just like, yeah, so if you're telling me, and again, we have to see what they do in the draft and free agency, but if you're telling me that he's going to have a similar offensive line and no reliable weapons outside of Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, then he's not going to be a good year. I'm just not buying it.
No, I agree with you. No, when it comes to I'm not worried about the weapons. Aaron Rodgers, he is in the Mahomes tier. I realize he's 40. He's that type of experience and football IQ that I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about the weapons. He's got Garrett Wilson. He has Brees Hall, and quite frankly, I think he actually has some tight ends that don't get the proper recognition. People don't know about yet, really, because they haven't. Aaron Rodgers hasn't played with these guys yet, but I think they've got I think they've got more weapons than Jets fans realize. It's just that you haven't seen it because you've only seen Zach Wilson. However, I agree with you. What I am focusing on is if I'm the Jets, I'm getting either Joe Alt in this draft or Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, one or the other. Or even Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State. I am getting another offensive lineman. I'm going defense. I'm not going weapons. I'm going either offensive line or I'm going defense for the Jets because Aaron Rodgers is like a Mahomes or a Brady where he will, make these. And I thought the Lazard contract was ridiculous. I think it was like $11 million a year for a few seasons guaranteed. I thought that was ridiculous, but Aaron Rodgers is going to make anyone pretty much look pretty damn good and live up to the contract. He really will. He is like Mahomes. And I believe at the age of 40, coming off this injury, he still will do that until he proves that he can't. That's just how I feel about him. Same thing with Tom Brady. Like, he's just one of those remarkable historic quarterbacks who's don't worry about him. Worry about your offensive line. They get that offensive tackle or add to your defense, like even make it even better than it was in a lost 2023.
Well, they have to hope that's the case because I can tell you, I can tell you something with almost near certainty. They're not adding any. They're not using their first round pick on a defensive piece because I think it's become
not
clear.
Really worth it.
It's become clear as Rodgers is going to have the say on who they pick, and he's either going to go wide receiver or because they've given him the entire franchise. So for their sake, I hope
he better go offensive line. If he's got to say, he better go offensive line. Yeah. It's a very good offensive line class.
I didn't mean to go off on a Jets tangent. It was I literally only brought the point out.
It's okay, man. This is postseason. We're having a few drinks and we're just shooting the shit. It's all good.
I only literally brought the point out to say that I think it's embarrassing to release a video about new jerseys coming out while a team's still celebrating a Super Bowl win. But we've been going a little while, I know. So the last thing I will say to bring it back to Mahomes is I want to issue a little public service announcement to everyone. So, get closer to your whatever you're listening on. I think we did this with Brady, and it's what we were saying about appreciating greatness. We live in a world now where, for whatever reason, we have to hate on people that are successful. And Mahomes gets a lot of hate. I don't really know why. Like, he gets a lot of hate because he's got a brother who's annoying. I don't know how that's his fault. He gets a lot of hate because there's a lot of angry men out there that can't wrap their heads around that his wife's been with him since they were teenagers, and they're now attacking her because she's on the front of the swimsuit issue, and what's she done? Yet they can't seem to grasp the fact that she's actually brought a professional women's soccer team to Kansas City and helped build the first all-purpose. I think it's like the first all-purpose soccer stadium for a women's team, and she's been at the forefront of, and she's part of that ownership group. So there's all these different reasons people hate on him, and then you add on top that he's the best player in football, and the Chiefs keep winning. Just appreciate it, because this kind of greatness you don't see all that often, and I just think we didn't do it with Brady because we were too busy hating on him. Just appreciate it, because someone like Mahomes isn't going to come along all that often, if at all.
I'm gonna say this, Andrew, who's a Jets fan, they were too busy hating on Brady. I, the Giants fan, were very busy appreciating Brady because we handled him. Also, We had Bill
Oh yeah,
Belichick, who
this is
most
true.
Giants fans were consistently thinking, what could have been? What could have been? He should have been our guy. He should have been our head coach. And but we handled Brady, so it wasn't a problem.
So you're only
But
sucking up because you hope Bill Belichick ends
the
up with the
more,
Giants in
the
2020.
more Andrew, the more Super Bowls that the Patriots and Belichick and Brady won, the more I loved it. I rooted for them in every friggin' Super Bowl because it made the Giants look even better. And unfortunately, I have to throw the Philadelphia Eagles in there because they beat the Patriots too. Because no one remembers them; they're forgettable. The Eagles, they're
Nick
disgusting.
Foles, Philly
They're
special.
disgusting. And that stupid statue outside of their stupid stadium, forget them. They're disgusting.
Long
Pigs.
live Nick Foles.
No, actually, I love Nick Foles. I have a lot of
And
respect.
you
I
got,
always like Nick Foles. He's a dude. I like him.
You got to love Jason Kelsey too.
How could you not? No, there's a dude. I respect, man. Harry Roseman, the GM for the Eagles, scares me to death. He's like Emperor Palpatine. He's like the mad genius who, like any player who's released from any team, he's going to the Eagles. He's going to the Eagles for $500,000 a year or whatever. It's Harry Roseman is a mad genius as a GM, and the Eagles have they haven't won that many Super Bowls, but man, they are like a team that's an organization for a long, long time, has been for decades now, has been a consistently good team. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for Harry Roseman, the GM of the Eagles. And actually, I love Jalen Hurts. I can't say I root for him because he's an Eagle, but I actually really respect. I like Jalen Hurts a lot. I really, really do. But I will never root for them to win. Screw them.
I think what Sunday taught us as well is that in the era of the salary cap, having a GM who knows what he's doing and who knows how to build a team from the trenches in is so valuable. And the fact that the Chiefs have got Brett Veach, who, the defense he's put together. Yeah, look, offensively, some of the pieces that they've signed haven't worked out, but I think Juju Smith-Schuster actually had a really good year last year, and then left in free agency. They've had,
he did.
But I mean, look, he traded Tyreek Hill so they could sign other pieces, and they've won 2 Super Bowls since. So the job he's been able to do,
They did the right thing.
And look, he'll make. I'm pretty confident he'll make moves this year where they'll be able to sign Chris Jones to a contract, and like I said, I'm pretty sure he'll go out and add a significant piece to that offense this year, be it through the draft or in free agency or trade. Because I think they're going to want to give Mahomes a bone to kind
They
of.
should. They should. I mean, listen. I was pointing out earlier, a few minutes ago, like 5-10 minutes ago. It's a deep wide receiver class. They should get him another weapon, but I'll tell you, at the end of the first round, Andrew, there's going to be a lot of really, really good talent. Like, don't be surprised if I'm not going to say any of the guys taken into the first round or in the second round are going to be better than Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. I don't think anyone will. But man, it's going to be Besides those two, like, don't be surprised if anyone taken back into the first round or at any point in the second round, if they wind up being better than any of the wide receiver taken in the first round, not named Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. It's a really stacked wide receiver class. This offensive class, like I would suggest teams stack up on your offensive players. I'm not crazy about this draft as on the defensive side of the ball. Some good cornerbacks, a few good edges who flash. I think it's actually pretty good at defensive tackle. But it's not. Last year was a very strong defensive class. This one not so much. So I recommend stacking up on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's offensive line or wide receiver. You got a plethora to choose from.
Yeah, no, I think I need to do. I haven't started my deep dive on the draft yet, but it's definitely flush with talent on the offensive side of the ball, and but I think in terms of just the final thing for me, again, just as we as we reflect on what we saw on Sunday, I mean, this Chiefs team, man, just just special, and what we're
It
seeing
is.
with Mahomes and Kelsey, and I think, again, Andy Reid needs a lot more kudos, because that play he drew up for the game-winning touchdown, and it, you know, 2 years running now,
Mhm.
the offense has been completely stymied in the first half, because you said it, first half, the 49ers were in control, but I think the Chiefs took over in the second half. Now
They did.
that
Were
didn't
you shocked?
necessarily.
I wasn't shocked.
No, because again, it's that big game experience,
Yeah.
and I think you mentioned it on Saturday show with the defense, that they started slow against the Eagles,
Yeah.
made adjustments, and I think they probably went in the half on top of the world, because they were down 7 points, and it's like, all right, we've
Yeah.
got number 15. So
Yep.
um, just what they've built there is, and the fact that they're all going to be back next year. And if you look, it wasn't just the fact that they had no, they hardly had any weapons this year. I think they had like the toughest schedule in the postseason, and they're on the road. They re-
Understandably, they
they
were defending Super Bowl champions. Yeah.
they had a hell of a schedule during the regular season. They had to play in Germany,
Mhm.
so there was every reason for them to kind of crumble this year, and they didn't. They're on top of
No.
the world right now.
You know
So
what, Andrew? I learned last year. I expected them to crumble last year. I expected them to make the playoffs last year, but to not make it to the Super Bowl. When I say crumble, to not make it to the Super Bowl. When they made it to the Super Bowl and beat a team in the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think on paper, in my mind at least, on paper, were better. We're substantially better than the Chiefs last year on paper, and they lost, and the Eagles lost. Chiefs won. After that, I'm like, I will never, ever in my life bet against Reed and Mahomes, or Mahomes, Reed, stack it however, any way you want. I'll never bet against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid again. Same thing with Belichick and Brady. And it's like, yeah, you know what? It's like you will lose some Super Bowls, but you're going to win more than you lose.
yeah,
And that combination, Brady Belichick won 2/3 of the Super Bowls, and I expect the same for Mahomes and Reid. It's just too good, and they've got a really great defense. So
yeah.
I like
And
what they
look,
do.
the 49ers had a better team, but they didn't have number 15, and that was a
Hey,
difference.
they have the better, in my opinion, they had the better team like 3 or 4 years ago when they had Garoppolo at quarterback and they played
Yeah,
the Chiefs, and I thought they were better the better team then as well.
I think on the flip side of all this, though, and obviously I will probably have to wrap up in a minute, but
Yeah.
um, I just feel sorry for Kyle Shanahan, because, like we say with Mahomes, what he does on the biggest stage is what his legacy is. Well, it's what you do in the big games. What you do in the regular season doesn't matter a crap. It's what you do
Mhm.
in the postseason, and I
Yeah.
think what's being lost in the conversation now, because of what's happened in the playoffs, is that Kyle Shanahan, like his dad,
Mhm.
revolutionized how football is played.
Yeah.
He was the first off that tree, of that Mike Shanahan tree, that really revolutionized offenses, and is a big reason why we're seeing the surge in points today. And obviously Sean McVay was, Mike McDaniels are all offshoots of that tree. And but because he's now been to 3 Super Bowls, two as a head coach, one as OC, and like we said, there's been two overtimes in Super Bowl
Yeah.
history, and he's been involved in both and lost both. That's going to be kind of the stain on his resume. And I think the sad thing is for the 49ers is that they could go down as one of the best teams never to win a Super Bowl, because look, this as well as I do. These windows are so damn short, and um, uh, his name's escaping me. The defensive player who went down hurt. why am I losing his name? But obviously, Debo Samuel went down.
I'm sorry, Trey Greenlaw.
Yes, that's it. I
Yes.
can I don't know why his name
Oh,
escaped me, but
I didn't realize that was muted.
um, that's going to be a tough one for him to come back from. Debo
You
Samuel was
know,
banged up. George Kittle was banged up. What's been the long conversation about Christian McCaffrey is, well, as long as he can stay healthy. Now he has done for a couple of years, but that's
yeah,
always been the rub against him. And, you hope not, but there's no guarantee that he's going to stay healthy.
right.
And
Listen,
and so these windows, they do close.
they
Stupid,
do.
you know.
They do. However, I think there are coaches and GMs who are better than others. And when it comes to them, I don't believe in the windows closing. Like, I don't think about a 49ers window closing. I don't, because they have a really good GM and they have a really good head coach. When you've got that combination, I wouldn't worry about a window closing. I think you worry about that when you've got, let's say, I'll put it this way, bluntly, Buffalo. I'm not a Buffalo fan. I wasn't surprised that Buffalo did make the Super Bowl. I don't think they're overly impressive. I don't think their coaching's impressive. I don't think Buffalo has anything impressive about them except for Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs is a very good wide receiver who just hit 30. I think their defense is good, and it was actually looking really good when they signed some key free agents this year, Buffalo. And then they had a few injuries, and Buffalo, I think Buffalo's in trouble. And I think they're in trouble because I don't think they have an excellent GM. I remember when the Giants hired their GM from Buffalo 2 years ago and Brian Dable. I'm like, listen, I like Brian Dable. I like the idea of Brian Dable. I like but don't push too hard for me. I'm like, don't push Joe Shane on me too hard from Buffalo because you're acting like they drafted this phenomenal team. And really, I felt like they drafted a good team, a fine team, but not overloaded with superstars. They drafted Josh Allen, and that's what they nailed right. And I always get nervous. It's the same thing with Nathaniel Hackett, drafted head coach from Green Bay. Who made that guy? No one would know Nathaniel Hackett except for Aaron Rodgers. Ben McAdoo, who was the head coach of the Giants back in 2016, 2017, he was hired by the Giants because of Aaron Rodgers. And then people pretend like, oh, it's these, great offensive schemes, yada, yada, yada. No, it's not. It's a quarterback-driven league. You're focused on Ben McAdoo coming from the superior system. He comes from a system that's got Aaron Rodgers. And it's the same thing with Josh Allen in Buffalo. People have been focused like on coaches from, say, Buffalo, like Brian Dable. I'm like, dude, you did a great job in identifying, drafting in Josh Allen. And that's not, I don't take that for granted, but you did that. You did both. You identified him and you not just drafted him, you also developed him. And that's not a given. So it takes talent as a coach. But when you're a team that's got a really great quarterback, who in my opinion is up there with Mahomes, who's Mahomes-esque, and Josh Allen, and you haven't made a Super Bowl, that's a problem. So I do think short story being that if I'm San Francisco, I feel very good. If I've got whoever the GM is, I forgot who it is, and whoever their and Kyle Shanahan as my head coach, I'm all good because you've got two really good guys who know what they're doing in drafting and on the offensive side of the ball. Kyle Shanahan has been in the Super Bowl 2 times as head coach. You've got nothing to worry about. It's the same thing for Kansas City Chiefs. Like, you've got Andy Reid. You don't have anything to worry about. You're all good.
That's a fair point.
You don't. Yeah, I don't. But like I said, with Buffalo, like other teams, Miami, I'd be scared about a window. I'd be very scared about a window because you don't know, your head coach, your GM. No, I don't know if I have that combination. As good as these teams are, Dallas, I don't know if I have that combination. I don't know. Dak Prescott, and what's his name, McCarthy. I don't know if I have that combination. Even Philadelphia, I got to be a little worried, even though I think Harry Roseman's a mad genius. He's like a mad wizard over there. I'd have to be a little worried about it. I mean, San Fran's been to 2 Super Bowls in the past 3 or 4 seasons now. Mahomes and Reed have been to, like every single Super Bowl, maybe outside of one over the past 5 years. Like, if I'm a 49ers fan, I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all.
Yeah, no, that is a fair point and probably a good one to finish on, I think.
Yeah. That's almost an hour, 40 minutes. So we should wrap up over here. But listen, it's the end of the 2024 season, or 2023 season, excuse me. It's been a long season, but a good season. As a Jets fan in Andrew and a Giants fan for myself, it's been a long season on the bad side of football. It's been very, very long. But man, I am so looking forward to the draft coming up in 2.5 months. And
that's the thing. There's no such thing as an off season.
You gotta be optimistic.
They like I put this line in a story I did yesterday. The NFL is the best at squeezing.
It is.
It's
never a downtime. Never.
Juice from its most profitable orange,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they do. They like with the NFL Network and Good Morning Football never goes away. They obviously they tend during the off season to rotate with different announcers. A different team, presenter team. Sorry, whatever you call them. But it never goes away, and obviously the draft is just around the corner, and then before you know it, it'll be rookie camps and training camps. So
yeah,
we're gonna have plenty of stuff to talk about. I know me and you want to do more together
100%
next season, so hopefully we can get that sorted out in some way, shape, or form. And
100%.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to finish the 2023 season, and looking forward to the draft and getting next season started.
No, it's going to be a good time. And man, I can't believe the season's over. It has, I mean, as a fan of a shitty team, it's been a long ass season. I got to say, it's been really long. But you know what? Super Bowl ended yesterday. Hope springs eternal, Andrew. And I am very, very optimistic.
You say that the season was long for you. Think about me. The season was over after 75 seconds. Yeah. So
it was
started for us.
It was, but I actually wasn't surprised. It's like I've seen that so long. It sounds like I'm being negative for like Jets fans. I'm not trying to kick you in the nuts, but it's just true. It's like you guys have the worst luck I've ever seen in my life. There's no other organization that could have been that could have happened to besides the Jets. I'm not even joking around. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm dead serious. I've seen it all over 50 years.
I'm not one of these people that jump on the curse bandwagons. I don't like to give credence to curses, but I think in the case of the Jets, I'm willing to accept that there's some sort of curse on that franchise.
Man,
I'm feeling the same way. There not to be.
I feel the same way about the Mets, and we're both Mets fans.
Oh.
You know what? We have to do some baseball stuff this season, Andrew. We got to do some baseball
stuff.
Spring.
It is baseball season now.
I know it is. We're officially in baseball season. Actually, now we really are. It's crazy when you think about it.
Can I, before we go, because we're now approaching 1 hour 40 minutes, and people listening to this are going to think, "Oh my God, he is the biggest moaner going." But it's kind of the same with the Mets. I think we knew at the trade deadline what this year was going to be, despite the fact that they've tried to put lipstick on a pig by saying they're going to be competitive, like
Ohtani and blah blah blah.
And I know David Stearns has said that again today, that they're competing for the playoffs. I think in a division where the Braves are a juggernaut, the Phillies have made the World Series and nearly got to the World Series in the last 2 years. And I think not only that, because they refused to go outside for a designated hitter, despite the fact that lineups struggled for power for the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso's
Yes.
gone. If you if you read between the lines of
I'd
everything
be
they've said,
shocked if they did not. He wants to be a Met. I'd be shocked if they did not resign him, and if he did not resign him with the Mets. They have to resign him.
if they were, so there's 2 things, and these are gonna slightly contradict each other, but bear with me.
I get it. I got you.
If they were serious about keeping him, they would have
Mhm.
extended him by now.
I'm with you
But
on that.
but the contradictory part of that is they almost can't because of who his agent is. He's switched agents to Scott Boras. Scott Boras isn't let
Yeah. Mets have signed. They've signed contracts with Boris agents in the past.
yeah,
I'm not worried about that.
but if you look at next year's free agency class, that is his golden goose.
You know
There's
what?
no
Listen, the Mets, in my opinion, sign Alonso. He wants to be a Met, and as a Met owner or investor, you want him to be a Met. You want to be around for a long time. I would keep him. I think that can happen. Whether they do it or don't do it. Listen, the stupid thing is that you can't just let someone like that walk. That's someone you have to trade. And,
well,
and
this is what I was just gonna say. This is the
yeah,
rub. I don't think the
Mhm.
Mets want him.
That's crazy.
Pure
Get out there.
the reason I say that is because
Mhm.
Steve Cohen has wanted David Stearns to run his baseball team ever since he bought the
Okay.
team.
Yeah.
So he is now giving the team over. This is now David Stearns' team.
Yeah.
David Stearns has made his name by
Mhm.
making tough decisions and building through pitching. The Mets have no pitching at
They
all.
have no pitching. I agree.
And if you read all of his comments on Pete Alonso, he's playing
Mhm.
into the Scott Boras thing because what they're banking on is Pete Alonso to have a monster first half of the year,
Mhm.
and then they'll trade him
Well, you know
for a
what? Listen,
monster
th
for a
actually,
monster
but
package
you
for
know
the
what, Andrew? I don't know about you. Uh, I wanna know how you think about this. Man, we have to start a New York Mets, podcast.
yeah, for sure.
Cross stream. We'll do both. Andrew Steele and, I'll come up with a name for, Toilets of Titles New York Mets show. Gotta start doing it. Um, I want Pete Alonso, but you know what? Honestly, here's my thing with Pete Alonso. I love Alonso. I want to keep him. However, if they want to trade him, that's fine. Get something in return. I don't just want to lose him to free. You can't lose him to free agency. But here's the thing: is that what I see is that the Mets aren't winning anything until they have good young pitching again that they
Yeah.
develop. And just like you had in 2015, it took them a few years to garner that talent and develop it. And by 2015, they added a few bats. Whammo! They go to the World
If
Series, which they lost, but they went to the World Series.
if you look at what Stearns did with the Brewers, you look at
He did a
obviously
lot with the small market
he
team. He can do a
he
lot
de
with the Mets.
he developed Woodruff, Burns,
Yeah,
Hader, but he did all that on a small market budget. He's
right.
gonna obviously have more money to play with the Mets, but you've also got to start from somewhere. So
You have to
I
start from
I
somewhere.
I can see as much as it would piss the fan base off, I think probably from Stern's point of view, I'm just reading a lot of his comments, and I'm just speculating, but this is the feeling I'm getting.
Mhm.
I think he's probably because outside of Alonso, the Mets haven't got many tradable assets that would get back a monster package.
No,
I
they
think he's
don't.
probably okay in trading Alonso at the deadline, especially if he thinks they might lose him. Because if you think about it, the Cubs made the boldest move of the offseason by hiring Craig Counsell, but yet they've not
Mhm.
really done anything this offseason. They'll probably re-sign Bellinger, but this wasn't a great free agency class. Next year will be better, and if they went out and signed a Pete Alonso, because obviously they've not hired Craig Counsell to be a rebuilding team.
Yeah.
And you can put a few other teams in that. So I think if Stearns could get 2 or 3 high-end arms in the deal for Alonso, then
Mhm.
then the difference is working under Steve Cohen, he will then have the money to go out and sign a big bat in free agency, because it's probably more feasible to spend money on a bat in free agency than it is a pitcher.
Yes, it is.
I think
And
that's
that
what, I think that's what they'll do. Personally,
it makes all the sense because they've got good to decent young bats coming out of the minor leagues, over the next few years. I'm not the craziest out of the guys they acquired last year, to be honest with you. But they have zero pitching. And remember when they moved on from the general manager from the mid to late 2000s, Omar Minai, who I actually think was a really good general manager. They moved on from him. They started doing a really good job actually developing young pitching, or acquiring young pitching. They drafted Matt Harvey. They traded for Carlos Beltran for Zach Wheeler. They traded what was his AJ Dillon? Was that his name? The knuckleballer who they traded Toronto for Syndergaard. Was it AJ Dillon? He was a knuckleballer who won like the Cy Young 1 or 2 years in a row.
Oh, okay.
But you're talking about like 2013, 2014. It was 10 years ago. But anyway, whoever they traded, it was a knuckleballer that traded for Toronto for Syndergaard. So you had Harvey, who they drafted, Wheeler, who they traded for with Beltran, Syndergaard, who they traded for with a knuckleball starting pitcher. And then they also drafted Steven Matz. They had 5 pitchers in 2015 who were all, basically homegrown, or they at some point came through the Mets farm system. And they should have won that World Series. To this day, I'm still shocked that they were the better team on paper, in my opinion, the Mets. But you need young pitching. I'm not saying you have to have 5 young studs, but you have to have some studs. Yeah, and they have none of that in the Mets farm system. So I don't know. I think it's time to start a Mets podcast, Andrew.
Yeah,
I think it's time.
I think we need to do it. Absolutely.
I think we need to do it. But we are an hour and 45 minutes in. This was supposed to go 40 minutes. We went an hour and 45 minutes into it because we're just so much to talk about and just great conversation. But I don't know, man. I don't know. And how do you want to wrap this up right now? This 2023 season, Super Bowl 58. Andrew, I'm going to give you the mic. You're my guest. Any way in particular you'd like to wrap this up?
I think we just leave it simple as we've gone long tonight, as you said. I think the only way to wrap it up is that Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT and the Chiefs are just getting started.
Yeah. Just like the 2004, 2005 Patriots just getting started, man. And hopefully, listen, for those of you who are like haters out there, if you're an AFC West fan, like a Raiders fan or a Broncos fan, good luck to you. Good luck, because it's gonna be a long 10 to 12 years.
This is how I'll mic drop this. If you don't like Mahomes or the Chiefs, then as Joe said, best of luck to you, because if you think what they did up until Sunday, well, the fact that they've now gone back to back and are now building a dynasty, they are going to be on every commercial. They're going to be Kelsey and Mahomes are going to be everywhere all off season long. There's going to be no escaping Mahomes and the Chiefs. So if you're really hell bent on hating Mahomes and the Chiefs, which I don't know why you would be, then my suggestion is go befriend Elon Musk and see if you can be fired up to Mars on a rocket.
Yeah, good luck to you, people. Good luck to you.
I'm glad that's how to end it.
I'm glad that Reed is out of my division and then Mahomes was never in my division, the NFC East. So thank God. As long early these playoffs, when the Cowboys got knocked off and the Eagles got knocked off, I'm like, from here it's easy coasting. I can root for whoever. It doesn't matter to me. So, but all right, Andrew. Hey, listen. I'm glad we both had a very, very fun, even though our team sucked. Our team stunk. Yeah. We had it was an eventful NFL 2023 season. Great way to wrap up the season. And listen, we are officially 2024 NFL season, that is. The Chiefs being the Super Bowl champions, it's old news at this point. They've been champions for 24 hours. It's old news.
As Bill Belichick said, we're on to Cincinnati.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Again, everyone have a great night. I hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl yesterday, and we're heading into the draft. Andrew, you want to promo your show a little bit, your podcast?
Yeah. So the Andrew Steele podcast can be found wherever you get your podcasts. Also got the Steele Sports Bar, the Everyman sports site for the Everyman Sports Fan. You can find that at the steelsportsbar.substack.com.
Awesome. And listen, here, Toilets of Titles. This is New York Giants Corner, but it's one of the Toilets of Titles programs. We've got a lot of draft stuff going on. Coach and I and Ephraim, aka Mr. Irrelevant, we're doing our draft profiles. We have a few every week. We're updating our big board every other week. And as a matter of fact, we're in the middle of doing our 10th mock draft for 2024. So this is one of the biggest times of our season, right now leading up to the draft, as well as leading up to the start of the NFL season, because that in 2024, we're fantasy football. That's our bread and butter over here. But right now, we're busy with draft stuff. So everybody just continue to tune in. And, it was a great 2023, and it's going to be an even better 2024. So this is Joe. I'm out of here. Andrew, had a great time talking, going pretty much back to back 2 out of the past 3 days, talking about the pregame on the Super Bowl and the post game. And this is a wrap for the 2023 season. All right, everybody, take care, and we'll see you soon. Adios, amigos.